The corporate lobby gleamed with marble and glass. Harrison Drake sat on a bench near the elevator banks, reviewing documents on his tablet before a crucial board meeting. At 39, he'd built Drake Enterprises into a powerhouse, but success had come at a cost. His marriage had crumbled 3 years ago, leaving him with wealth, reputation, and a profound loneliness he rarely acknowledged. He was so focused on the quarterly reports that he didn't notice the small figure approaching until a tiny voice spoke. Directly beside him, "You forgot your lunch." "Daddy!" Harrison looked up, startled to find a little girl standing before him. She couldn't have been more than 3 years old, with blonde pigtails and a pink dress. She held out a bright pink lunchbox with a cartoon face on it, offering it to him with absolute certainty. "I think you have the wrong person," Harrison said gently, glancing around for parents. "I'm not your daddy," the little girl's face scrunched in confusion. She looked at Harrison, then at the lunchbox, then back at Harrison. Her lower lip began to tremble. "But Mommy said bring Daddy his lunch. She said you forgot it." "Sweetheart, where is your mommy?" Harrison asked, concern growing. The lobby was busy with people coming and going, but no one seemed to be looking for a lost child. The little girl pointed vaguely toward the building entrance. "She's at work. She said I should bring this to you before your big meeting because you always forget to eat when you're nervous." Harrison's heart clenched. This child clearly believed he was her father, but he had no children. His ex-wife had left before they'd started a family, citing his workaholic tendencies as one of many reasons their marriage had failed. "What's your name?" Harrison asked, crouching down to her level. "Zoe," the little girl said, still holding out the lunchbox. "Please take it, Daddy. Mommy worked hard to make your favorite sandwich." Before Harrison could respond, a woman's panicked voice cut through the lobby noise. "Zoe! Zoe, where are you?" A young woman rushed toward them, her face pale with relief and fear. She wore simple work clothes and had the same blonde hair as the little girl, though hers was pulled back in a hasty ponytail. She looked to be in her late 20s, exhausted and worried. "Thank God," she breathed, reaching for Zoe. "I'm so sorry, sir." She slipped away while I was getting supplies from my cart. "I work in the cleaning service here, and I brought her today because childcare fell through and—" She stopped, really looking at Harrison for the first time. Her face went from relieved to mortified. "Oh no. Zoe, this isn't Daddy. I'm so sorry, Mr. Drake. I recognize you from the company directory. My daughter, she's been confused ever since—" The woman's voice cracked slightly. "I'm so sorry for bothering you." She reached for Zoe's hand, but the little girl pulled back, still offering the lunchbox to Harrison. "But Mommy, you said—" "I know what I said, baby, but I was talking about someone else," the woman said gently, though her eyes held pain. "Come on, we need to let Mr. Drake get back to work." Harrison found himself taking the lunchbox before he quite knew why. "Wait," he said, "please. I have a few minutes before my meeting." The woman looked uncertain. "Mr. Drake, really, we've already disrupted your day enough." "Harrison," he corrected. "And it's no disruption. But I'm concerned. Zoe seems convinced I'm her father. Can you help me understand what's happening?" The woman, whose name he learned was Mara Collins, reluctantly explained. Her husband had died 8 months ago in a construction accident. He'd been a foreman who'd worked in this very building during its renovation 2 years prior. "Zoe was only 2 when it happened," Mara said quietly, sitting on the bench beside Harrison while Zoe played with the lunchbox. She doesn't really remember him clearly, but she sees men in suits in this building and sometimes she gets confused. Today she saw you from across the lobby and was absolutely certain you were her daddy. Before I could stop her, she ran over. "I'm deeply sorry for your loss," Harrison said, meaning it. "Thank you. The company was generous with the settlement, but it doesn't bring him back." Mara wiped her eyes quickly. "I took this job because I needed work with flexible hours. They let me bring Zoe sometimes when I can't arrange care. Most days she stays close to my cart. Today she just saw you and—" She trailed off. Harrison looked at Zoe, who was watching him with those big, hopeful eyes. Something in his chest tightened painfully. "The lunch," he said. "Your mother made it for someone?" "For her daddy," Zoe said. "She makes lunch every day and talks to him while she works. She says he's in heaven, but she still makes his favorites." Mara's face flushed. It's silly, I know. But making his lunch, packing it like I used to, it helps me feel connected to him. I end up eating it during my break. It's just a ritual that comforts me. Harrison understood rituals meant to fill emptiness. He had plenty of his own, may I? He asked, gesturing to the lunchbox. Mara nodded, confused. Harrison opened it to find a carefully made sandwich, apple slices, cookies, and a small note that read, "You're doing great. I'm proud of you. Love always." The note wasn't for Harrison, but something about it broke through his carefully maintained composure. This woman, struggling to make ends meet, working in a building where her husband had died, still took time to show love to someone she'd lost, to maintain connection through small, tender gestures. When was the last time anyone had told him they were proud of him? When had he last felt genuinely connected to another person? "I have a board meeting in 20 minutes, Harrison said slowly. "But afterward, I'd like to speak with you both properly. Would that be all right?" Mara looked uncertain. "Sir, I don't want to cause any trouble." "I know having Zoe here isn't exactly—" "You're not causing trouble," Harrison interrupted. "Please, I'd like to talk." "Give me your floor and I'll find you after the meeting." 3 hours later, Harrison found Mara working on the 15th floor. Zoe was coloring quietly nearby, contained this time, but watching him with interest. "How was your meeting?" Mara asked nervously. "Successful, actually, though I found myself distracted by thoughts of you and Zoe." Harrison sat down on a nearby bench, gesturing for Mara to join him. "I want to help. And before you refuse, please hear me out." He explained that Drake Enterprises had a child care facility in the building that he'd funded, but rarely thought about since he had no children to use it. Zoe could attend at no cost. "Furthermore," Harrison continued, "I've been thinking about expanding our employee assistance programs. I'd like your input on what would actually help working parents, especially single parents. Not as a favor, but because you have valuable perspective we need." Mara's eyes filled with tears. "Why are you doing this?" "You don't know us." "Because your daughter called me daddy and it made me realize something," Harrison said quietly. "I've spent years building a company, accumulating success, and somewhere along the way I forgot what any of it was for. What it means to actually help people instead of just making profits." He looked at Zoe, who was holding up her drawing for him to see, a stick-figure family with the sun overhead. "And because when I opened that lunchbox and saw the note you'd written, I realized I've been living a life where no one tells me they're proud of me, and I don't tell anyone else either. That's not success. That's just expensive loneliness." Over the following weeks, Harrison found himself checking in on Mara and Zoe regularly. What started as charitable concern evolved into genuine friendship. Mara challenged his assumptions about business, about life, about what mattered. Zoe brought light into his structured days, reminding him what joy looked like. Harrison reformed company policies, improved benefits for working parents, and started seeing his employees as people rather than resources. Mara became an informal advisor on family-friendly policies. Her insights invaluable because they came from lived experience rather than theoretical knowledge. "You've changed," Harrison's assistant remarked one day. "You smile more. You seem more present." I was reminded that life is about connection. "Not just achievement," Harrison replied. 6 months after the lunchbox incident, Harrison found himself at Mara's small apartment for dinner. Nothing fancy, just spaghetti and salad. But as he sat at her modest table, with Zoe chattering about her day and Mara laughing at his attempts to twirl pasta properly, Harrison felt something he hadn't felt in years. He felt home. "Can I ask you something?" he said after Zoe had gone to bed. "Of course," Mara replied, pouring coffee. "That day in the lobby, Zoe called me daddy because she was looking for her father. I let it happen, took the lunchbox, engaged with her." He paused. "I think part of me was looking for something too. For purpose, for connection, for people who saw me as more than just a CEO." "And did you find it?" Mara asked softly. "Yes," Harrison said. "I found it in a little girl who mistook me for her father, and a woman who makes lunches for someone in heaven because love doesn't end with death." Mara wiped her eyes. "I should tell you something too. That day when Zoe ran to you, part of me wanted her to be right. Wanted you to be someone who could step into the void my husband left. Not to replace him, but to help fill the emptiness. And now? Harrison asked. Now I think maybe we've been filling each other's emptiness. You needed to be needed. I needed someone who saw me as more than just a struggling widow. We needed each other. A year later, Harrison proposed in that same corporate lobby where Zoe had first approached him with a lunchbox. He'd arranged for the company to install a permanent memorial bench for Mara's late husband, honoring the man whose death had inadvertently brought them together. I'm not trying to replace your first love, Harrison said, holding Mara's hands, but I'm asking to be your next chapter. To help raise Zoe, to build a family, to show you both that love can be found again even after loss. Mara said yes through happy tears, while Zoe danced around them, delighted. At their small wedding ceremony, Zoe gave a speech that she'd practiced carefully. When I was little, I brought the wrong man lunch, she said, her childish earnestness making everyone smile. But Mommy says maybe he was the right man all along, just in a different way than I thought. She says sometimes we find what we need when we're looking for something else. I think that's called a happy accident. Harrison scooped her up, this little girl who'd called him Daddy before he earned the title. The happiest accident of my life, he agreed. He looked at Mara, radiant in her simple dress, and marveled at the strange path that had led them here. A confused child, a forgotten lunch, a moment of unexpected vulnerability that had cracked open his carefully controlled world. You changed my life, he told her that night. You and Zoe reminded me what matters. You gave us hope when we'd forgotten what that felt like, Mara replied. You showed us that loss doesn't have to mean the end of joy, because sometimes the wrong person turns out to be exactly right. Sometimes a case of mistaken identity leads to true connection, and sometimes love finds us not when we're looking for it, but when we're open to unexpected moments of grace that arrive in pink lunchboxes, carried by little girls with pigtails who see possibility where others see only strangers. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe for more tales about unexpected connections and found families. Comment below about a time when a mistake led you to something wonderful. The best blessings often arrive unannounced.